What's up, guys? So this is part 2 of the story of how CrossFit Edwardsville got started. And as I mentioned in the first video, the story of how this business and how a lot of businesses get started is typically the story about people. And so I kind of started by telling some of my background, and now as I go into part 2 of the story, I'll keep talking about, my background, but also kind of interweave these stories of the other folks that were involved. So when I was 19 years old, I was pretty much a health mess, and I knew nothing about exercise really, nothing about healthy eating really. And that's about when I met the amazing, beautiful girl that would later become my wife, Caroline. She was introduced to me by a mutual friend, and we started, kinda, sorta seeing each other, but Caroline was super reluctant to date me for a lot of really good reasons, not the least of which was the age difference. She had she's a few years older than me, and so she kind of, there was some distance there for a while, and I was courting her. And anyway, that was about the time that I was just starting to experiment with like fitness and gym stuff. Like I had moved out of my parents' house, and I knew that I really wanted to kind of turn my life around and have a healthy lifestyle. And I was kind of making some moves that direction. I was reading like bodybuilding magazines to try and learn about exercise programs, and I got my very first nutrition plans from bodybuilding magazines and the Body for Life diet by Bill Phillips. And Bill Phillips was one that got me started doing like interval cardio before anybody else. It was kind of neat looking back that like his style of high intensity interval cardio was kind of like ahead of its time. He's into a lot of circuit training and stuff like that. So that was sort of where I got started with exercise, was just like lifting weights, doing like high intensity interval stuff on the treadmill via Bill Phillips. I was just experimenting, right? And what was kind of neat was this beautiful girl, Caroline, that I was hanging out with a little bit. She was also experimenting with exercise and nutrition, and it's kind of funny because she'll tell the story about how when she met me, I had like this daily ritual of eating brownies, Little Debbie brownies in the evening, and she was the one that talked me out of that. She persuaded me to have fruit for dessert instead of brownies. So I can credit her with, anytime I have fruit for dessert or a banana where we used to have a brownie, that's a Caroline transformation, something that she did for me. But we started like just going to the gym and doing our own things. Like she would hit the gym and do her workout, and I would hit the gym and I would do my workout, and we both started seeing pretty positive changes, pretty positive progress. And friends and other people start asking questions like, hey, what are you doing? What's working for you? Like, I see you're making these positive changes. You start getting some attention, getting some questions. You start answering some of those questions that people send your way. Planting the earliest seeds of, fitness and nutrition coaching. Anyway, so, we got deeper and deeper involved in that, and then I think it was 2008. I was just in the habit of trying to look up new exercise programs online. I found CrossFit.com, and I started pulling workouts from CrossFit.com to mix into my regular rotation. Every once in a while, I would invite Caroline to do those workouts with me, and so we would fitness together. And it was like we kind of started to develop a little bit of a following. Like they found this CrossFit thing intriguing, although in our area nobody else really knew about it. So they kind of thought what we were doing was intriguing because we're doing these crazy like push-ups on the wall, or upside down doing handstand push-ups, or we're doing the crazy swinging style of pull-ups, and that got a lot of attention in the gym, people asking us questions about that. And we started to have more friends wanting to do exercise with us. In 2008, that time, both Caroline and I were in grad school, and I was, just doing my very first CrossFit workouts. And I noted that like, people in the grad school with me wanted to do some of those workouts with me because I had been doing the exercise, been the nutrition for a while, and was seeing some real change, some progress in my body. Like I was getting like really lean and defined. I had lean muscle and all that. And you know, CrossFit was just a really cool way of taking my exercise program to the next level. So me and Caroline are doing those workouts, and I felt this calling in my heart to share this with more people. But in order for me to do that, like the specific calling that I felt was to lead a church group, a small group at the church that Caroline and I went to together. And that was like really terrifying for me because, again, I'm an introvert, and the idea of public speaking was totally not in my wheelhouse. I was really afraid of it. I started attending Toastmasters so I could develop that skill of public speaking and getting better and more comfortable, more proficient with that. And then I took the leap of faith, and Caroline and I started a church group where we would lead CrossFit style workouts. We called it Cross Fitness and Nutrition. And in church foyers, we started our very first CrossFit classes. And I remember it was incredibly like fascinating just how fast the groups grew. Like, it was the very definition of like explosive growth. Like, we had like 5 people at first, and then it was 10, next week it's 15, next week it's 20, next week it's 25. And we're like, holy cow. There was like this really amazing chemistry between Caroline and I as like a 1-2 punch leadership, you know, in fitness. I was like the technician, and Caroline was the heart, the soul, the spirit of the operation. And just the two of us together, like, we really gelled really well in leading this thing, this like kind of nebulous, amorphous, but growing fitness movement. And we were the only people in that time frame that were, you know, doing any kind of CrossFit around here as far as we knew. So in 2000, gosh, it was we were leading these classes, and it just kept growing. We were in grad school. So here's how this worked, right? Every single weekend, Caroline and I would hop into my Ford Focus, and we'd drive, you know, 30 minutes to the church where we went, Faith Family Church in Shiloh, to lead these classes entirely for free, by the way. Like, every class we led was completely free. And then we expanded to leading both fitness and nutrition classes, where we shared what we learned in our journey with other people. And both of those groups just kind of exploded in growth, and we made some friends that be friends for a lifetime for us, which is really, really kind of cool. Thinking back now, people that are still friends with us to this day, and it's been so many years. We would invest the little money we had. See, in grad school we had very little cash, like almost none, and the very little cash that we had, we would invest into like whatever equipment we thought would be optimally valuable for this little group. So dumbbells are like universally like useful. You can do 1,000 exercises with them, and they can be, you know, difficult. They're easily like modified to different variations of exercises. So we invested our little bit of cash in buying dumbbells that we thought would be the most applicable to the greatest number of people, which is like 30-pound dumbbells for boys, maybe 15 or 10-pound dumbbells for the women of our group. And I mean, it's like exhausted our cash funds in buying these little pieces of equipment, but we still use those. It's awesome. Still use them in our gym here to this day, because you can do so many neat things with dumbbells. But that was the very first equipment we ever had. I remember thinking to myself many times that our Ford Focus would definitely bite the dust, just like, you know, carrying back and forth all these dumbbells, which, you know, when you add them all up, after we had accumulated some of them, they basically weighed as much as my Ford Focus. We were shuttling them every single Saturday. We would put all the dumbbells into the trunk of my car, drive to the foyer, unload into the foyer, set up workouts, lead a workout, lead a nutrition class, and then after every one class we led, we would take all those dumbbells, put it back into the back of my Ford Focus, and pray to God that the Ford Focus wouldn't die on the way of commuting back to our apartment in St. Louis to unload those dumbbells. It's kind of hilarious now looking back, but that Cross Fitness and Nutrition group was where we developed our leadership, where Caroline and I built our very first fitness following. And when I got my CrossFit level 1 in 2010, this is so cool, this was also where we met the person that would become the very first full-time person on our team, Coach Janelle Radel. I got my level 1 at CrossFit Arlington Heights in late June of 2010, where I decided, you know, it's time I go and become an official coach instead of a pretend coach. I need to go out there and actually learn like legit skills. At CrossFit Arlington Heights, I got my level 1, and I remember there was very few women in the group at that time, but there was, you know, the ones that were there, like, you'd remember them. They were memorable people, and Janelle Radel was one of those super memorable people. We're in Chicago, Illinois, I understand. That's where we get our level 1, because in those days there were very few level 1s, and to get level 1, if you weren't on the coasts, you had to travel someplace. Well, I traveled to Chicago, Arlington Heights, to get my level 1. So that was where I met Janelle Radel, but you know, there was no connection. I had no idea where she was from. You know, we you know, meet each other, talk in passing. Then fast forward several months where I'm leading a fitness and nutrition class at the church, a small group, holding my skills in public speaking, and in the door one day for one of our completely free classes, Coach Janelle, well, she wasn't Coach Janelle, Janelle Radel walks in the door, and I recognize her, and there's that immediate connection, like, dude, you were at the level 1 in Chicago. I met you there. We are like hundreds and hundreds of miles away from where we first met our level 1, but she just happened to be from the same area that we were, and she walked into our church group because she had heard through the community, she'd heard through the grapevine that we were leading these CrossFit classes at the church for free, and she wanted to come in and throw down with us. And that was how we got to really know Janelle Radel, and she became a core part of our group. And it was Janelle that allowed us to take the next steps when we went to the next phase of our growth, the next part of our story. So I'll tell that part in part 3.